Hey everybody, welcome to a new video. It's been a while. First of all, I noticed that I don't have my light that's normally over there, so my lighting's gonna be a little off. I also noticed a couple of things. Not really ready to make a video again. I know I try to make one every month. Now I'm making one, it looks like every 2 months. It's been a heck of a fall so far. If you can hear me in my voice, I've got pneumonia. And that kind of plays into what I'm going to talk about today. But I've been waiting to acquire this for a very long time, and that's the first book in the Enchanted World from Time Life Books, the Wizards and Witches. All right, so we're going to go down the nostalgia tour, and I realized that I am thoroughly and deeply addicted to nostalgia, probably more so than the average person. It just seems like all of my ingrained happiness and things that literally make me light up all come from a very small point in my history, and we're talking going 40 years back. So I would say the last 40 years of my life, basically, in my head has just been replaying the same events and the same things that caught my attention when I was, 10 to 15 years, 5-year span, maybe 10 to 15 years. I don't want to give it an exact, because, there's certain things obviously from before that, certainly obviously after that, but I would say most of my happiness comes from that time period, which is odd, like anybody knows with nostalgia. You look at that time in your life with rose-colored glasses, because there was a lot of shit that me and my family were going through at the time, and I was, as a young kid, that to my detriment as an adult, shaped the way that I am today. But for some reason, I look past that. I look past that to these certain things that obviously I was clinging on to as a defense mechanism to, to get through that time period. So this is one of those things. Sorry, my voice is really gonna sound harsh for this. I haven't talked to anybody in a few days because I've been sick. I had to go to the hospital, of course, and so I haven't really been talking to people since then, and now that the antibiotics are in me, my voice is really starting to fall apart. Sorry. But this book, like Dark Tower, sorry, I know I go on tangents all the time, but I've also noticed with my traffic on YouTube that nobody's really watching these videos. So, indulge me the freedom just to go off and say whatever, because nobody watches it anyways. And that's not an what do you call it, an invitation to start shit. I'm just saying that nobody really watches these. And I've also noticed that my true loves and my passions in life are a very, very niche hobby, if anything. That I don't think a lot of people share. So relating to this, you might be a little hard pressed. And I say that because when I talked about Dark Tower, which is a board game from Milton Bradley back in 1982, nobody really watched that video. And I thought to myself, yeah, I thought this was popular. People like this. It's not like you can get a Dark Tower game for cheap. Everybody wants, an arm and a leg for it online. So I figured, hey, it must be popular. No, nobody cares about it. But people obviously will take advantage of of people like me to squeeze as much cash as they can out of you, preying on your emotions. But Dark Tower is a fantasy game, and it had a commercial, and I played it in the Dark Tower video. Go back and watch it if you want to. They had a commercial on TV. It was Orson Welles was in the commercial, and I always thought that, looking back, I'll play the commercial for this, but there was a commercial for this. And of course, this is back in the heyday of the 80s when I was glued to that box. No internet, no cable really. I mean, in 1985, yeah, my dad had cable. My mom didn't have cable. I spent a lot of time in my mom's house. So, I had network TV, and so I watched a lot of commercials. And, they'd hook me in. And it's Vincent Price in the commercial for the Enchanted World books. For some reason in my head, I kept thinking it was another Orson Welles commercial, but they're very similar. Set up kind of the same way. And obviously it worked on me. But I remember seeing these, and it's funny. I'm not going to go totally down this rabbit hole because I'm not a Western fan. My dad was big in Westerns because he's from that time period. And Time Life Books had a series called the Old West. I think it was called the Old West. And they had these books were crafted in hand-tool leather. And they were, they basically talked about the gunfighters and gamblers. And I remember sitting on the couch with my dad, as a kid. I think I was like 8 at the time. And we're looking through the book together, and I'm looking at black and white photographs of dudes being hung, like outside of a city. I'm just like, huh, well, that's weird. My dad didn't bat an eye, as he grabbed his can of Miller Lite. He didn't care. Which kind of plays into this book because there's a weird situation with my mother. But I like the idea of these Time Life books, and there's also one I'm also looking for. I only had like 1 or 2 of them, were the phenomenon ones, like the UFOs and like supernatural and stuff like that. But this one, of course, like I said, this is 1985. I was pretty deep into Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy in general. And I saw these books come on TV. I had to have them, and I told my mom, can we get them? I think they were like $10 or $12 at the time. Funny because I got this for free on thriftbooks.com because I had the $7 credit, and it was only $5.99 for very good condition. And it's funny. So it's cheaper now than it was back when it came out in 1985. But my mom, she was like, okay, fine. So we called up, we had to call up on the phone, the 1-800 number, and we want to order this book. And then they sent it, and I didn't get them all, but I got maybe 5 of them, I think, until my mom's like, you know what, these are kind of getting expensive, so let's stop getting them. And I kind of like, I don't really know if I want any more of them either, because I had a Christmas one that came out, and I really didn't want the Christmas one. I think you could have skipped a book. I'm not 100% certain. Thrift Books has them in order by book number, and I've looked them up on Wikipedia, and they show them by book order. But they show like the Dragons book being the second book, and I swear the Fairies and Elves was the second book because that's the one we got. And then we got Dragons. So I don't know if I get not remembering it right and getting them out of sequence, or they just picked an arbitrary number system. And I know this was the first book, but the second book I'm pretty sure was Elves and Fairies. Like I said, I had the first 5 books. I think there's like 15 total or 20 total. I probably won't try to acquire them all, but most of them are available on Thrift Books. I have my love and hate relationship with Thrift Books, but it's my go-to for anything. If Thrift Books wants to give me some cash for giving them a positive endorsement, and Thrift Books should definitely use in their ad campaign. You know what? If you're a lunatic and you're obsessed with the past and you can't move forward in life, and the only thing that keeps you from killing yourself is buying the shit that you had when you were a kid, come to Thrift Books and and relive your childhood, relive your past, because Amazon ain't going to do it for you. You know what I mean? They should use that kind of because I'm sure they'll hook a lot of people. You're like, oh my goodness, I was just about to take all this bottle of pills or drink this entire, gallon of vodka. But no, I can get the 5 books that I had when I was 12 that made me so happy. Oh, Thrift Books, here I come. Sorry, my voice is really starting to sound weird. Not that what I'm saying doesn't sound weird either, but it's funny. There's like little white marks and stuff on here. I remember I got like fingerprints all over. I think I had like pizza on my finger and like stain the back cover. But But I mean, the cover itself, that image, I always thought was so cool. And I like knights, and I like fighting heroes, but I really like wizards. I just thought they were so cool, especially like the Merlin in the Excalibur movie. I just thought wizards were cool. The wizard. I keep thinking about that Black Sabbath song. But like this opening, this is how the book lays out. You get a lot of artwork. It's pretty cool artwork in it too, and then you get these little excerpt stories. And like I said, remember I couldn't read very well back then, if at all. And just trying to get through a book of this size and trying to finally hit on everything took me years. And the thing is, none of it really ever made sense to me. Because, like I said, I would read a little bit and I'd look at the image, and then suddenly my mind was off in my own imagination, concocting a story in my head, and which had little to do with what the actual story in the text was about. And I would go off into, like I said, into another dimension as a kid, this fantasy world where I've totally blocked out all of reality. And the reason I say sickness, having pneumonia now, plays into this is last few days I was pretty wiped out. And one thing that's definitely, if you want to talk about nostalgia, it's painful nostalgia, but nostalgia nonetheless is, let's say you live in a different city. Let's say you burn scented candles, or your house smells different. Like when you smell a smell that just takes you right back to a spot. Well, there's also kind of like a taste, smell kind of feeling, and that's being sick. And when you get a headache, or you feel nauseous, or you get the chills, you want to bury yourself in the blankets and stuff. My mind, I don't know about yours, but your mind goes back to a time back then. And the thing is, I seem to be sick an awful lot when I was a kid, especially in my my tween years. I would say from 10 to 15, I seem to get sick an awful lot. A lot of headaches, a lot of flus, and stuff. And the thing is, when I was recently sick, I was just, my mind would go back to being curled up on the couch in a kid at my mom's house, or that tiny little apartment she had, next to this giant heater. It's the middle of winter, and you're dying. You're shaking like a leaf, and you look over at this. We had this, it wasn't a coffee table, it was like this trunk that we used for a coffee table that my mom could put stuff in. And I look over, and there would be wizards and witches sitting on the trunk. And you're just shaking like a leaf, and you're like, I need something to make me happy. You look over and you see the book that you cherish so much sitting on the table. And like I said, it's weird shit like that I'm assuming people can relate to this and have this. I can't think that I'm that unusual. maybe I'm a little unusual in the way I vocalize about it, but it's crazy. And it is also that apartment she had was so dark and dank. And, we used to have curtains, which, I don't have curtains in my apartment, but I just remember a lot of people having curtains. And when the curtains are drawn, very little light comes in. And I just remember lots of, winter nights, sitting around, we had this big orange chair. And my mom, all of her furniture was just ramshackled together. It was not really, there was no real rhyme or reason. A lot of it was old crap that she got at, garage sales and stuff. So it had a very weird kind of Needful Things kind of, eclectic vibe in there. And, and you have this, weird books like this, and you're sitting there. And my mom also is obsessed. She's not much more. She has dementia, but she was obsessed with astrology. And I mean, there was literally piles, and don't get me started in the magazines. Oh my God, I'm trying to clear out her house right now while she's in the home, and it is a job. It is a nightmare job, trust me. But she was obsessed with magazines, and she had those astrology magazines you get at the checkout at the grocery store, stacks and stacks of these astrology magazines. And she had all these books on like Wiccan witches and all this stuff that, my grandma was into, like astrology and everything. And, my grandma's from the South, and my mom was into all this stuff. And, you'd just be surrounded by all these astrology books, and she'd oh, me and the girls are going to go to the psychic tonight, and you're like, you'd be okay by yourself? There's TV dinners in there, and you'd sit home, and while your mom's out at the psychic, pouring through your witches and wizards. So obviously the apple didn't fall far from the tree as far as when your passions lie. I never really was, I kind of dabbled in astrology, but I never really thought there was much relevance to it. It just seemed too, convenient. My biggest thing with astrology is, why don't they ever give you horoscopes that tell you, don't go out today because you'll die. Hey, how about you not buy that house because it's going to fall apart, right? Or, your summer looks horrific. I would leave and go somewhere and not be around. Or, hey, your wife's going to turn into a lunatic. You should divorce her now. That's what, if astrology would tell you some bad news once in a while, I would believe it. When astrology is all these vague, positive, uplifting things to make you feel good, like, oh my gosh, my life isn't a total, bucket of shit. Astrology is telling me everything's great. If it wasn't just that, I would believe it a little bit more. Sorry, a little bit of a rant there about that. I could go in for hours on that. But yeah, paintings like that, And okay, now there is a painting in here I love, and I would love to get a poster of it or a print or whatever and have it framed. I love this painting, and it's simplistic, but it's not super simplistic. But it's subtle. And the colors in it, and the use of darkness in it, and of course the name of the excerpt, The Black School, is such an awesome painting. I can't find a good, now that I got the book, I might be able to find the artist's name, but I couldn't find a decent photograph of that painting. But you've got this guy, where is he, over here? You can't see his face, it's all blacked out, and he's teaching this young acolyte or apprentice or whatever. This guy over here, the way he's holding that spear guard, is a little, I think he might be a little light. I think he might be an acolyte, if you know what I mean. He might be a little light in his acolyte. And then you got this guy over here. This is me as a kid. I'm just gonna hang out with my nose in a book. I can't read it because I can't read, but it's brought me to this mentally, to a world like this, And you've got this guy with holding this thing, and you got a guy feeding pigeons there in the background. It's like this. It's called, and you can see these faces in the walls behind it. It's just this big book, it's on this dais here. I love that painting. The excerpt's called The Black School, Some Brave Wizards of Europe. It was said, learned forbidden knowledge in a school presumed to be in Spain. I really like to go for Spain, but not for the wizarding schools. There's another reason I probably shouldn't get into. A cavern reached by winding staircases leading far into the earth and sealed from the sunlight by iron doors, except for their own murmurings. I remember that. I remember reading that. Except for their own murmurings, the scholars had a silent schooling. They saw no schoolmaster and heard no responses to their questions. Remember, I haven't seen this book in person in almost 40 years. So take that for what it is. The answers they asked for each night appeared in the mornings as letters that glowed and faded on the pages of their books or shone from the cavern walls. No servants brought the wizard's sustenance. Instead, a shaggy hand thrust out from the walls the food and drink that they required. I remember that. I always thought that was weird. instead of, oh yeah, blah, 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 where are we, blah, 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 blah. No fee was asked save one, that the last man to lead each class give his body and soul to the schoolmaster. Okay, maybe I was right about what was going on in this. Whose name was Satan. Satan. That's so fucking badass. Yeah, give his body and soul to Satan. Yeah, I think Lance over here, Lance over here with his delicate grip on the spear has definitely given his body to Satan. Yeah, the thing I didn't like about that was, oh no, I guess it did continue in the back. I always thought that was part of the other story. I don't remember reading the Legions of Night. Young man, profligate, having... Huh! See, this is why I couldn't read this as a kid. I guess it continues. Not for very long. You get 2 columns here. Unlike Bacon, what? Many wizards made habits of summoning demons. The evil... What? Wait a minute. Okay, it doesn't continue there. The evil... And it doesn't tell when it... Evil hyphen what? Oh, sorry, the evidence. Okay, so this Legion of Night is like this little, like, excerpt thing in the middle. The book is laid out really odd. For a kid who couldn't read to begin with, this was a nightmare to follow. Yeah, and then it continues into... All right, I'm going to have to read this whole book cover to cover and find out, unlock all the secret... Mephistopheles. Unlock all the hidden, forbidden knowledge that I never understood as a kid. Yeah. I tell you, if Satan wanted to possess anybody, so a young kid, I think he would have had a perfect vessel with somebody like me who was totally open to craziness. But I think he's like, can I get a smarter kid? A smarter kid that maybe is a little more pretty than this lunatic. I fought off Satan with my own ignorance, with my own incompetence. Anyways, yeah. Like I said, it goes on. There's a bunch more stories in here. Like I said, the artwork was just interesting, and this is a time when, like, remember, I mean, you had like all the Larry Elmore stuff and the Jeff Easley stuff for Dungeons and Dragons. This stuff was more like steeped in like folklore and like myth and folklore, like fables. Than, I mean, Dungeons and Dragons was as well, obviously based mostly on Tolkien stuff, but it was it was a little more classical, I guess, in a sense, for like how the folklore was presented. It's funny, I took a class in college called Myth, Magic, and Folklore, and it was not the class I was thinking of. This professor just went off about, like, female genital mutilations in Africa. It's just like, why I don't want to know this. It's like, and then he went off about, he was obsessed with sex, which I could understand. I mean, I could relate, but I mean, he was obsessed with sex, but sex in, like, weird, strange, like, it was just like this, like, he wasn't a black guy. I mean, he was like a creepy white, he looked like a homeless person. For some reason, I didn't think he had any teeth. He had like he had like no teeth. When he talked like this. And he was just, he was obsessed with India and Africa and just would go off on all this like folklore and like magic and stuff and all this stuff in like Indian. It's like, this is not what I didn't know that's what this class is about. I thought it was going to be cool stuff, like learning like Arthurian legends, and Celtic myths and, Greek gods and stuff. And and I remember, I think I did my main paper for the class was on, it was on, I'm trying to think. Not Samson and Delilah. I'm drawing a total blank. It was about Greek mythology. My primary reference was that guy. I can't, my brain is not working anymore. Maybe I did have a stroke. It was about who's the guy that's like famous for Greek myth that Lucas read. That guy, can't think of his name. But yeah, that was like his books on mythology was like my primary source from it. And the professor's very like, oh, he's gonna, he's like, oh, he's not writing about creepy female genital mutilations in India. He's writing about myths. The most basic thing when people think of myths, and myths is, the mythic gods of Greece. I had a lot of problems with a lot of people. In college, I had some professors, like I said, they seriously wanted to just throw them out the window. But anyways, what am I saying? Oh yeah, so like I said, I think I'm going to order at least the 5 books that I had. I had dragons and elves and fairies. Who knows which one was 2 and 3, whatever. I had ghosts, and I had, I want to say the dwarves book, or there's another horror one. Devils or something, I can't remember. But yeah, I had those books, and like I said, there's some other ones I saw that are cool. But I liked, the Valiant Knight stuff. Like I said, I like knights, and I like Arthurian legends and stuff like that. But like, when it comes to Arthurian legends, my hero was Merlin, and I like the wizard and the arcane and the occult and the Satanism. I love all that stuff. That stuff's to me more interesting than have it thee, and or jousting or knights and stuff. It seemed like like arcane stuff would be more like taboo, stuff, shock value, and evil stuff. And jousting and knights was all more like football and sports and normies. So I liked the dark occult stuff better. Just a lot more interesting to me. Let me hit you guys up with that commercial. All right, Vincent, take it away. Whoops. Nope.
On evenings like this, I like to curl up with a good book. The sort of book that lets the imagination run away with you.
Was he? You know what I'm asking? I know he was married and he had children, but was he?
If you're like me and enjoy the mysterious and the unexplainable, you'll love the Enchanted World. A fascinating new series from Time Life Books about the legends, myths, and folk tales of ages past.
There's ghosts. Orson Welles, Vincent Price. Those are the guys who could sell some shit.
These are the books that let you fly along with those unlucky spirits condemned to haunt the world of the living.
Ghosts.
You'll find yourself in a world where valiant warriors battle fearsome dragons and scaly creatures snatch away beautiful maidens. Each volume brings to life so vividly those inhabitants of the other world, witches and wizards, ghosts, goblins, and avenging knights. Call now and enter the Enchanted World with the first book, Wizards and Witches. My favorite subject. It's an intriguing account of sorcery, spells, and deception. Other books include ghosts, fairies, and elves, and dragons.
Yep. And all 3 of them.
Painstakingly researched by the editors of Time Life Books. Each volume is exquisitely illustrated and portrayed with masterwork.
There it is.
Each volume is superbly written and bound in luxurious fabric.
Okay, here's the other thing. I don't know how many times as a kid I gotta do it. Sorry, it's the sensations. I don't know how many times I was just dying to run my teeth across this book as a kid. I mean, I was already obsessed with smelling books. But the other sensation, the tactile, weird sensation of running your teeth against this fabric on this book as a kid. I was a weird kid. A weird adult anyway. But yeah, the fabric on it with this gold embossment. I've noticed, I looked out at my bookshelf and I've got all my stuff of relative same time period and relative of same, kind of falls into place. There's so many things out there with gold embossment on it. that like when the sun catches through the window, or they get certain lights catch it just right, like the little light that's on the table. All the gold embossings like light up in the bookcase. I think that's so cool.
Only remember, once you're lured into the enchanted world, there's no telling where your imagination will take you.
It's just a thread. Oh, it's $14.95 for a book. That was expensive back then. I mean, 1985. Yeah, I mean, you know, a Cobra Hiss tank or a GI Joe Vamp vehicle. That was about $15. So that wasn't cheap. You know, that right there. That's three Masters Universe figures. So yeah, I could see why my mom was a little hesitant to keep buying them, especially my mom made no money.
It will be sent to you free for 10 days. Keep it and pay just $14.95 plus shipping and handling. Others will follow about one every other month. Keep the ones you want. Cancel anytime. So call 1-800-4...
Call or write. Who writes? Oh, I need to order the Enchanted World books. Let me take out my quill and feather and write out a telegram to send them that I would like to purchase the books. No, you call them on a phone.
53-3900.
You guys don't notice it. No, you don't realize it now because of cell phones and everything. I'm talking to people younger than me. Is when you saw something said 1-800 number as a kid, at least me being the lonely lunatic, you know, you're like, hey, I can call somebody in another state and I could talk to somebody. I want somebody to talk to. You know what I mean? You'd call like the Time Life operator, you know, Pearl, and you just want to talk because you're lonely. And you could do it for free because it didn't cost anything. Like I said, I don't know how many bills I racked up with phone bills trying to call places long distance. And being able to call a 1-800 number and calling out of your area code, and especially another state, or even another country, which was unheard of at the time, was just insane. You know, and nowadays, I mean, you could go online and talk to somebody from Italy for an hour. You know, I mean, you couldn't do that then. So, you know, like I said, just things are so much different. I literally feel like I am living in a different world than the past. And there are conveniences to the way things are nowadays. I mean, be able to do this for you now and you know, and videotape this. I mean, this was unheard of back then. This was unheard of in 1995. You know, unless you were loaded and you could afford like a $1,500 camcorder, you know, and even if you did find one for like $800 or $900, right? The quality was shit. You know, they had those little mini tapes and stuff, and you had to master it down to a VHS or whatever. And there's no way you could get it unless you get like public access. You know, it's not like you could get it out to anybody. I did a lot of public access as a kid in the early 90s. But yeah, I mean, that was the only way to do this stuff. I mean, now you can sit here in your own bedroom, which is also my office, and you can, you know, you could do this stuff with easily. And I mean, this camera was like what, $150, $200. I mean, it's a little bit nicer than some of the other ones, but I mean, you know, and they're probably cheaper now. Anyways, my voice is starting to go. It's probably picked a long time to do this, and 35 minutes. I'm going to try to get you another video faster. I knew when this came up that I had to make this video because, like I said, this is one of those things, and I have a lot of those, one of those things, and my whole apartment's filled with one of those things. That's just, you know, things of. I didn't make a video. I'm not going to go into this. I didn't make a video about this, but I had these books. I had this as a kid. These are like these illustrated encyclopedias that my parents got me, I think in a garage sale. They were like from the 60s. And I had these in the 70s. And in my bedroom, I had the whole complete set of them. And I always loved that cover with that creepy submarine with the green light. Anyways, like I said, all of this stuff is just, complete, just total dopamine eye candy for me to just kind of go back to a time when I would say when I was happy. But you know what I think it is? And I'll close on this. I don't think nostalgia means that you were happier per se when you were a kid. I mean, you might have thought you were. I think the biggest thing is your naivete, and your biggest thing is your lack of responsibility. I mean, what did you really have to do as a kid? Make it to school? Not fail out of school? Not get held back? If you could pull that off, and for somebody who couldn't read, that was difficult to do. If you could make it to school, bluff your way through school to where they let you go to the next grade, right? And if you could pull that off, and you didn't, cost your parents a shit ton of money by, getting into trouble. Those are your everything was provided for you. Food, shelter. I mean, even as poor as we were, we still had food and shelter. I had a place I could call home. I had a place I could curl up in a blanket, sick as a dog, and feel safe. Even if the refrigerator was filled with nothing but processed food and frozen dinners that, were terrible for me, you still had that stuff. And it was always there. And my parents, as much as my parents were broken parents, and of course broken marriage, they never didn't provide the basic necessities of life. They always could do that. And when you think about that as an adult, and especially if you're a struggling adult, if you're struggling at your job, struggling in a relationship, in a marriage, life, struggling with your kids, whatever you have in your life that's probably struggling with your parents growing old, or all of it combined, it becomes a burden. It's hard to handle, and I know people say, well, be a man and suck it up. Well, okay, I guess, I mean, what about women? If they're bothering them and they're having the same problems, are they supposed to suck it up and be a man? Or what about somebody who's, Mr. Dude, Mr. Alpha male, and he has nothing but life hammering the shit out of him constantly, right? You're going to tell me that guy is going to not crack at some point and not go fucking ballistic and beat the shit out of his wife or his kids, or his boss? Everybody has a breaking point, and the thing is, it's stress, and it's getting old, and it's the pressures of life. And when you're a kid and you're 12 years old, your pressures in life are, can I navigate school without losing my mind? Can I make it to school, not fail, not get the shit kicked out of me, not be ostracized from the community collective, and not, that's my only real responsibility, because I've always got a place to go home where I can hide under the covers when I'm sick, and eat TV dinners when I'm hungry. And that's what I think nostalgia is. People think, movies were better in the 80s. They were. Anyways, or all this stuff was better in a certain time. It is all relative to the person. Somebody who's 20 years younger than me is not going to think the 80s was great, because they weren't even born. So they can't really relate. All they can relate is, the whatever, the internet and what they told them the 80s was about. So that's what I'm going to leave you with on that, is that final note. I know I kind of touch on this in every video. I kind of, I definitely sound like a broken record a lot. Yeah, so, hey, in the comments, the 3 people that watch this video, did you have this book? Do you remember this book? Or you have no idea what this is? Do you remember what Dark Tower is? Do you know what a lot of this stuff is? You know who Vincent Price is? I would assume that some people are around my age who watch this and might see it and think, oh yeah, I remember that, right? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. I'd like to hear one comment every month from people. All right, I'm going to let you guys go. Like I said, I'm going to try to make a video sooner than later and not leave you hanging for so long. Whatever hits me at that time, then I'll make a video and then slowly or quickly deteriorate into just me ranting about life. Okay, I'll catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.